All right, so we'll go ahead and kick off. My name is Meredith Epp. I'm the Industry Partnership Manager here at APCO, and you have a lot of the lovely APCO staff joining us on the Zoom link today. So this is our first APCO Community Webinar, Adapting to Changing Circumstances, Building Community, and the Year Ahead for APCO Members. And we'll be having our lovely CEO, Brooke Donnelly, who'll be able to talk through some of the changes and things that are happening here at APCO and how we're adapting in this interesting world that we're living in at the moment. So just a quick bit of housekeeping. So using Zoom, I know this is new for a lot of us. Just mute yourself, use video if possible. I know we're all in isolation, but it's good to have some human contact if you have the capacity to do that. Also use the chat function if you have any questions. So we'll have a section at the end of the webinar today for discussion. So if you can just hold any questions that you have, but put them in the chat function, we'll have the team be going through, and Brooke and the team can answer some of those as well. You'll also see on Zoom there's a reaction bar. So depending on how you're set up, you should be able to put in reactions on your screen. So there's a thumbs up or a high five if anyone wants to go ahead and give that a try now. Or you can also raise your hand. There you go. Rosalind, Matilda figured it out. All right, so if you hear anything that you really like or want to give it a thumbs up or a clap, we encourage you to be interactive throughout today's session as well. And finally, this session is being recorded, so all of the slides will be available for you to look at later, and all of this will be recorded so that we can share it with members that weren't able to make it today. So without further ado, I'll just quickly run us through today's agenda. We'll be having a bit of a welcome. Brooke will be telling us an introduction to APCO Community.
Yes, I mean, that level, like, how can they see it?
If we can just mute yourselves, please. Thank you. Then Brooke's going to talk us through a little bit of what's up and coming here at APCO, what's in the pipeline. There's still lots of work that's been done and will continue to be done throughout the year. And then we'll go ahead and open it up to a group discussion to chat through any questions that you might have, or if you have any feedback about the session, we'll also be asking for that later on through an email this afternoon. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Brooke Donnelly over to take over our webinar. And again, thank you all for joining us. And Brooke, if you'd like to take it away.
Hi everyone, and welcome. I'm not sure if I'm going to take it over. That sounds like I'm imposing something upon you all, but trust me, I'm not. So welcome. We are super excited. We had our first big communal kind of Zoom meeting as a team on Tuesday, and there was about 24 or 25 of us on the line. So it was just so lovely to see everyone's face, and having been in the working from home Team AB protocols for coming on to 2 weeks now, we've only been seeing half of all of our friendly faces that we're used to seeing. So it was lovely to see everybody online on Monday. But what is really exciting is about today, and today came from an idea that we had, that we introduced a buddy system as part of the response to the COVID-19 situation, and that was intended to ensure that everybody in APCO had one person who was checking in and making sure that they were in contact, you know, whilst we were in this kind of new way of working, or as my board chair puts it, the new wow. And it worked out really well. And we thought about that buddy system, and one of the reasons, the key drivers behind that too, is to really address the somewhat isolating aspect of being in the current situation that the whole world is in, and having to work in this kind of new wow way, and trying to find your way through that. And we thought extending out that buddy system out to a community, a lot like a broader community sense. And APCO is very unique in the sense that it has this incredible opportunity to bring a lot of people together to really have important conversations and do some important work. But it is a community. It's a community of practice, and it's a community that works together to achieve a higher order, environmental outcome. And we wanted to try and make sure that that community stayed strong, it stayed connected, and if we were able to facilitate that in any way, that we wanted to bring that to the fore. And so here we are on the first Wednesday in the first week, with, I think there's 61 people on this call, on this line. I'm not sure what we call that. Do we call it a line? I'm not sure, but anyway, 61 people all here. We will be here every Wednesday for as long as this happens and we need to be here. We will be here. We will be talking about all kinds of different things. There's so much to talk about in sustainability. We'll never run out of things to talk about. So we are really excited to be able to bring this to our community and to help people stay connected, to make sure that we continue to progress the important work that we're doing, and that, we address what are going to be some challenging times. It's dynamic and it's uncertain, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a new way of working, and we will work our way through that. So welcome to a new way of working in the APCO community. And I love this slide that we've got up there. I know that we have taken ownership of Jamie Drury, which is fantastic, and the Groundswell team as well, and apparently also Minister Evans. So just everybody's there, which is great. So what we wanted to talk today, because we're just starting out, we thought, okay, let's do a session where we just talk about what are current things that are happening. And it's just been such an incredibly, I suppose, disruptive period. And with that comes uncertainty. And we just wanted to have a bit of a chat about a few things that we're working on and how we can stay, keep you across that, and, then to give you some time to ask us some questions and work through things. We had a big year planned already, and now it's a big year that we need to find a different way of making work. So we're very keen to keep you across all of those things. One of the things that we did also want to talk about in terms of what's up and coming at APCO is we appreciate that it is a time of disruption and a time where we need to be agile and be able to pivot and respond to different issues. And one of the things that we've done to do that is actually to work through the timeline for the annual reports and the action plans. So myself and the team sat down and had a really good conversation about what we could do to support business. We are fundamentally aware of how much a priority now things are, such as getting food to people, getting supply chains, keeping them maintained and running, the logistics, all of the kind of complications of really important work that's happening now. And we appreciate that that's not going to, and that's then compounded by having to introduce a whole heap of sometimes new protocols around hygiene and other issues, etc., into businesses to actually deal with not only an increased demand and different working conditions, but increased obligations as well. So what we can do is actually support industry and push out those timelines. And so that does mean we may have to rethink how we do the awards this year, but that's okay. It's, I think 2020 is going to be a year where most of us have to be open to the fact that things will be a little bit different. So we'll work through the implications of that, but primarily what we wanted to do was take the pressure off. Take the pressure off and make sure that we were giving organisations and industry the time to work through the priority issues that they have to deal with in a very real way right now, and allow that to happen. So we've actually pushed out the annual report and the action plans to the 30th of June, and that came out in an email, and member services are here to help you work through the reports over the next couple of months as your time becomes more available and we're able to address that. don't forget, there's heaps, like Alison has done an incredible job, and Meredith and the team, in producing a whole lot of resources for you to actually support the annual reports and the action plans as well. And even though nobody is in our office right now, they're all online, they're all accessible. You can give them a call, have a chat, send an email, get on Zoom. They would be happy to sit down and walk through reports with you, give you examples, help you work through that. So anything that you need in that context, that's actually a good opportunity to take a little bit of time to work through those things. Okay, so just moving on to how we're going to work, what we're doing right now in terms of how APCO is working with industry and government. I'm not sure if it's gone out yet, but it's due to go out today. There will be an email that will come out to all APCO members, and it explains some of the work that we've been doing in the background with government in terms of the work around packaging as an essential service. And so we've been in contact with Minister Andrews and the Department of Industry, Science and two other things, but essentially the industry department. They are the ones who are working with various other government departments to manage and strengthen the supply chains and address, the industry issues that are currently at play. So we have been very active in those conversations and will continue to be so. We continue to position packaging and highlight the importance of packaging in terms of not only the packaging industry and packaging manufacturers, but also the support or the need for packaging for, all of the food supply chain, etc., pharmaceutical, chemical, whatnot. Packaging touches everything and is everywhere. So we've been very vocal and open in supporting and providing the information that governments need and that industry needs government to be hearing across that space. We've also been working with government to provide them with some of the resources that we have available. For an example, the sustainable packaging guidelines, the food service industry packaging guidelines, as well as many businesses, pivot from eat-in to takeaway. It's a really important time to manage packaging and what kind of packaging is actually getting used and how that's going to work in, over the coming months. We don't want to create a big problem that we have to deal with later. So just trying to ensure that, everybody is on page and understanding that there are resources available and information available and guidance available to actually address these issues as they're coming up. So lots of conversations happening between industry and government, lots of work. I know there's other industry organisations, the Australian Institute of Packaging, the Australian Food and Grocery Council, for example, all doing some really great work in terms of working between government and industry to try and keep the doors open and keep things moving and keep us all on track while we work through the new wow, as they say. In terms of new wow and new ways of working, we've also, I want to take an opportunity just to say how amazing the APCO team is. We're in the middle of a global pandemic and they're still delivering, on time to their fullest ability. And yesterday, perfect example of that was the first working group. For the first time in APCO, we have got near on 200 participants in our working groups, and that is an incredible privilege in terms of the engagement and the collaboration that we are able to bring to the table to progress our work, and we did not want to lose that. And so one of the things that we wanted to be really sure to do was to still deliver the working groups, and that's what the APCO team did yesterday. They managed a group, I think, of 45 or 50 individuals in virtual workshop rooms in a Zoom meeting, varying levels of success at that, but everybody was heard and, we got great feedback and, we will get better at that as we go on. but you know, the working groups are up, they're active, they're live. It's working this week and next week are especially important because these 2 weeks are when we really refine the scope of the projects for 2025, and you know, that means what we're going to do in 2020. So we've got an idea already of what that needs to be, and now we're working through those working groups to actually clarify that. You can see that we have we've got the working groups that we had last year, so the National Packaging Targets Group, the Design Group, Systems and Education, and Material Circularity. We're also operating the ARL and Marketing Group and the ARL Technical Advisory Committee for the ARL program. We have our Government Officials Group. We have the Collective Action Group, which is the overarching steering committee for the delivery of the 2025 targets. And for the first time this year, we also have a CDS, or Container Deposit Scheme, national working group, which is comprised of each of the scheme coordinators from around Australia, working together with government and industry to refine and ensure that we have an efficient and, where possible, harmonised and program nationally. So it's a little difficult when you do have different states and territory programs, but looking to see how we can get consistency in there. And it's a really great example of closed loop systems and understanding how they work and trying to build that model for how we could do that in other places as well. So you know, an exciting time and an exciting opportunity to really take container deposit schemes and the national profile that they will have over the coming years to the next level. So we're very excited and pleased to be working with government and industry on that work as well. Okay, other things that are up and coming at APCO. So some of you may have attended or may have read some of the news around the ANZPAC program. So the ANZPAC program is a piece of work that I personally have been working on for the last 2 years. And it is a great opportunity for Australia and New Zealand and the Pacific Islands to work together on a plastics pact. So most of you will be familiar with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and we have developed a partnership with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and with RAP in the UK to work on a regional approach to a plastics pact here in Australia. We recognise fundamentally that plastic is an issue that does not stop at our shores, and it is a global problem, and it's a global problem within the global supply chain, and you cannot fix those type of problems by limiting our thinking to just this domestic capacity that we have here, and we recognise that working with New Zealand and the Pacific Islands has mutual benefits for both Australia and for those two geographies as well. So this year is a big piece of work to drive the engagement for the ANZPAC Plastics Pact program, and we are very much in the development phase. So it's about working out what are the targets, what are the priority projects, which stakeholders are involved, how will it be funded, what are the governance, how will it all come together. But there's a really exciting opportunity in there also around an initiative that we're starting as part of that work, which is called the Circular Plastics Research Initiative, and it's a piece of work that myself and our government partnership manager, Peter Brisbane, have been working on for some time now, around bringing together institutions like universities and industry to really get a cohesive and agreed pathway forward on research in the plastic space. So it's one of the exciting new things that's part of ANZPAC, but ANZPAC and the Plastics Pact program really allows Australia to elevate our work to the next level and accelerate resolving the plastics issue in a coordinated and effective platform where we bring everything together. There's a lot of good work being done in plastic right now, but a lot of it's also being replicated, and you know, that distributed effort, if we can bring that energy together into one place, that will be incredible in terms of actually accelerating and driving our response to managing plastic effectively here. Now, so ANZPAC was announced at the Plastic Summit on, my gosh, it seems so long ago now, earlier in March in Canberra. But what is up and coming is a very big piece of work that is ongoing, and we will be releasing next week, which is called Our Packaging Future. So, oh, hang on, I skipped the slide. All right, so we'll do this one first. No, we won't, we'll do the other one, recycled content. Okay, so there's two parts to this. The reason we switched these around is because the recycled content targets are something that we need to talk about in the context of the Our Packaging Future document. Okay, so I shared with everybody, and APCO shared, that we received a letter from ministers, from Minister Lee on behalf of all environment ministers in Australia last November. That letter was acknowledging the good work that had been done to date around benchmarking, analysing and understanding the progress for recycled content and where it was, acknowledging that we had surpassed the original target of 30% average recycled content in all packaging, and that it was actually now at 35. It also acknowledged that whilst that was an achievement and a good thing and something to be recognised and commended, what the further analysis and work done by APCO and APCO members and industry had shown was there was a very great disparity between the material types. So having paper, metal, plastic and glass, plastic, you know, is at an average of around 2%, where we've got other material streams that are around 50 and 60%. So it became very obvious quite quickly that there was, while the overall average was tracking well, we had some very distinct issues. And so the ministers had asked us to reset that target, and that was work that was underway already by industry. So that was great. We were able to tell them that and give them that information. And so we spent last year, from February last year to March this year, working through a consultation, various analysis projects, various technical analysis around what is possible in recycled content, what is probable and what is likely, and then working through what that would mean and what the implications would be for recycled content targets. The thing to remember around targets is that it's trying to find the balance, and it's finding the balance between being aspirational and having something to strive for, to achieve, and something that's actually achievable. And somewhere in there is that balance that we seek. And so we don't, it's not a matter of what we can do, it's what we can achieve and aspire to do. So we have, next Monday or Tuesday, we will be releasing a document which will set the new target for an average across all packaging, but then also for particular material streams, right down to the plastics by various polymers. So it's a very detailed piece of work, and something that's really exciting, because the most exciting thing about recycled content is it drives end markets. End markets drive healthy, sustainable, economically viable systems. And so, you know, being ambitious, looking to be, you know, progressive and move forward in this space is fundamental to supporting the end markets that are essential to ensuring that we have a sustainable system moving forward in Australia. So it's a really exciting piece of work, and one the team and all of the working groups and and whatnot have been across for, near on a good 18 months now. So we will get that all out to you early next week, but we'll get that out to you in preparation for, I can now go to our packaging future. So to explain to you what our packaging future is, when we've been working through the last 2 years, we have gone through and we've identified, the system, the issues. We've really understood, and we have a very deep understanding of where the barriers are in the system and whereby the opportunities are, the things that need to be fixed. We have a much more sophisticated understanding of how and what interventions are required to actually take us to a circular economy for packaging in Australia. And we have worked on how to deliver that and how to deliver the 2025 national packaging targets through a collective impact framework. Now, the projects, the evidence, the analysis and the work that has built that framework has happened over the last 2 years. There's been over 200 organisations and individuals involved in that work, co-authoring, if you like, the co-design of this piece of work. And it's been overseen by our collective action group in the last in 2019 and into 2020 now, as the steering committee that's overseen the, I suppose, if you like, the cohesion of all of that activity. When you've got so many stakeholders and you have so many issues and so much material flowing into that framework, how you coalesce that and present that in a way that is discernible and achievable for people to understand can be the greatest challenge itself. So we have spent a great deal of time and effort, and we are eternally grateful to the collective action group, to all of the participants in the working groups, to our government officials group and the government people who join us from various departments and have been part of this work over the last 2 years. It's ready. It's ready, and it's ready to come out to you all next week on the 1st of April. It's terribly exciting. I hope that you all enjoy reading it as much as we do. It has been designed to present the information about the current status of where we are, and to create a framework that gives us a clear and discernible pathway to how we achieve the 2025 targets. And there are challenges within that, but it's an incredibly exciting time, and it sets that framework for us to be able to achieve that work. So we're very excited about delivering it, and we know that it's going to add value to the discussion and help us move forward. One of the things I've just got on my list here that I failed to mention when talking about ANZPAC also was that tomorrow there will be an expression of interest link coming out, an email. It'll have certain information, including an invitation to any and all people, not just APCO members, but stakeholders who are interested in participating in this phase of the 2020 development of the ANZPAC Plastics Pact. There is an expression of interest link there. If you fill in the details, then we will include you in the work moving forward. So I would encourage anyone who has an interest in plastics and the plastic space, either in Australia, New Zealand or the Pacific Islands, to get on board, get engaged and be part of building that work as well. So we're busy. We're busy, we've got lots to do, and even though we are working in new ways and from home, and I've just spoken at you for a great deal of time, and I do apologise for that. I hope the information was useful, and I hope that it gives you an indicator of the great work that's happening, and that it is still happening and will continue to happen. APCO is an incredibly agile and adaptive organisation geared towards, making things work, and we're all action-orientated people, so we will make this happen. And I think the fact that we've got the working groups up and running, and that we will deliver our packaging future next week, is a great testament to that. Having said all of that, it would be lovely to get some questions from you all, and please feel free. It doesn't have to be on the things that we've talked about today. When we thought about starting these community weekly meetings, one of the things we wanted to do was to provide a platform, hopefully a growing platform for people who weren't engaged in the work to understand how and what they could how they could be engaged as well. So we are happy to take your questions, and I think Meredith is going to moderate that. Meredith, yeah?
Yes, sure am, and we have a couple that have come through already. One specifically broke around packaging being classified as essential services. So you touched a little bit about the work we've been doing with government, but obviously there's a lot more pressure being put on the food supply chain, the delivery system, other key logistics providers not being able to function if the packaging industry can't function seamlessly. Could you speak a little bit more about what's being done there?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, we have spoken to Minister Andrews in regard to this, which I've actually sent a letter. And that letter, that correspondence will be available in the email that'll go out to members this afternoon. And in that email, we've actually asked for very distinct questions around a range of things in regard to the essential business. Obviously, the one around actually being classified as an essential business, and there is work that's going on now within government to pull together that list. That's apparently a significant list, and there are quite a few businesses that fall into that category. So working through that with them, but also we've asked, you'll see in the letter that we've asked Minister Andrews to facilitate the conversations between government and industry, and we would be happy to coordinate those conversations around what government support will be available to, if you like, help businesses get from this side of this issue to the other side, and what support and potential initiatives are available to do that. Also opening up the door to be that conduit and enable the conversation around making clear what some of those challenges are. And we are very fortunate to have some very progressive and clear open thinkers in the packaging space who have been very open in the last week to give us some information and allow us to pass that through to government to identify what some of those key challenges are in terms of, as I mentioned before, some of the things around the hygiene issues, around the increased, the access to labour, the access to logistics, all of those kind of standard business practices, things that we need to clarify and work out how we are going to address them in the new ways of working. So we are very actively engaged in that space. Obviously, that conversation is for Minister Andrews in relation to those things, but that conversation, we've also included Minister Evans and Minister Lee in that conversation as well. It's an active conversation with many departments and within at the bureaucratic level within government as well. Meredith, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry, I lost myself in the sea of Brady Bunch faces. No, thank you for that. And again, if you've just joined us, we are asking everyone to put their name and where you're from in the chat box. And also if you have questions, to just enter them in the chat box at the moment. We have just a couple other questions. So one more coming through around working groups. So will APCO be using Zoom for all working groups moving forward?
Oh, that's a big yes. So in terms of the protocols that the APCO team have implemented, our first and foremost, our priority is our people, always is. And so we have implemented working from home procedures that kicked off on Sunday night. We'd already implemented working from home with Team A and Team B protocols 2 weeks ago, and now we have everybody at home. So the Sydney office is not open at this point. So all working group meetings will be conducted online through Zoom, where they're all becoming Zoom experts. And we did have some. We did have one of the working group meetings yesterday, as I mentioned, and you know, working through, like all of us, I think this week and next week, working through the challenges of how to do that effectively, but for the foreseeable future. That's what we'll be doing to protect our staff and protect, you know, our members and all of those wonderful people who participate in our working groups. We want you all to be healthy and well. We've got a very big job to do and lots of work, and so we don't want any of you, you know, falling by the wayside. So we'd like to keep you all healthy and safe, and delivering the working groups through Zoom will be an interesting challenge as we go forward.
Exactly. And I think what came up yesterday too is, but it is a good way to reduce our environmental footprint. So
very true.
Less travel. I know we all thrive off that person-to-person, face-to-face communication.
Oh yes, but Meredith, we've seen the dolphins in Venice in the waterways, and so you know, we tread more lightly on the earth. It can't be a bad thing.
We've had a couple more questions come through. So one more asking about, with businesses now restricted to takeaway only and not accepting reusable containers, how do you think this will impact the progress towards the 2025 targets?
Look, I think it's something that we need to acknowledge and we need to work through. But I think the other thing too is that we don't allow that to stop the progress, because the challenges around, to be frank, the challenges that you have with hygiene issues now and reusable containers are the same hygiene issues that you should have, generally speaking. You know, and that is just about ensuring that people, the problem is validating or verifying that people have undertaken those hygiene issues, those hygiene protocols. So, you know, we are in a unique situation, and nobody would suggest that, you know, reusable containers, when you can't validate that they've been through the correct hygiene protocol, that would be something that anyone would suggest using. But it is also where, you know, it's, I think, opening your mind to some of that thinking around alternative programs like swap and go programs. For an example, Woolworths run a great one at their head office, which is really interesting, which enables them to control the cleaning of and the hygiene issue around that. But your stock standard issues, it's an issue today. There's an extremely infectious illness that's attacked the globe, and you know, we need to be aware of those. But I think it also highlights the hygiene issues in that we should be really addressing and considering in a general sense as well. But the important thing is that we don't lose track and sight of that. And, you know, we are in exceptional circumstances which may require us to take exceptional measures. And, you know, I think the important thing is to keep the focus on what we need to do as we move forward, and ensure that we are taking more sustainable alternatives, and not allow that to be something that that people use to block progress on issues around reuse or reusable containers, etc. We just need to keep getting better at doing that, and we may not have all of the answers right now around those hygiene issues, but I think they highlight some of the issues that we need to address, not only now, but definitely going forward as well.
Yeah, and I think you said it really well, probably in our team meeting the other day, Brooke, where you said holding the green line, and we've made so much good progress. We've had so much momentum, all of us collectively together, that we want to keep that moving forward. This isn't a time to take a step back. Let's keep making that progress happen.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic. Jane Paramore, who's APCO's Sustainability Manager, has a potential workaround on reusables.
Of course Jane has a workaround.
Jane, if you want to share.
I only say it because I came across this problem exactly on the weekend. I took my dog for a walk and went to get a coffee with my reusable, and they wouldn't serve me. So I just asked them to put it in a regular porcelain dine-in cup, and then I just tipped it into my reusable, and I was good to go. So if you're happy to do that sort of thing, there's a way around it.
Well, there you go, Jane, with the workaround. Thank you.
Great. And then still on the takeaway packaging question, so another thing through on, do you have any advice for businesses that are exploring takeaway packaging for the first time as a result of COVID, and any resources you might suggest as a starting point?
Oh, absolutely, we do. Jane, who was just talking, actually led a piece of work that we did last year, creating a whole set of guidelines for the food packaging services industry. And if you go to the APCO LinkedIn site, actually, there is an article up right now that talks about the food packaging guidelines. There is a copy of the food packaging guidelines for the food packaging services up on the LinkedIn post on APCO. It's also available, we have it available on our APCO website, but it's a really great document that sets out really practical how-to for business, what you should think about when for food service packaging, what are some of the things to be aware of, some of the kind of greenwashing areas around wary areas that you need to be when looking at compostable and issues like that. Some of the reuse options. It's a really great document, very comprehensive. It's got some great case studies in there too, so it helps you understand how you can apply it to your particular industry and your particular sector. So it looks at things like the festival space versus a food court area type thing. So it's a really great. Oh, and I can see that Shella's just sending it all to you. Shella's just sending you all the link that's got that update in there. And oh gosh, they're so effective. Alison is now sending you all the the actual link to the document as well. So it is a race. Apparently, Shella and Alison are racing each other, but yeah, look, they're there, and that's I think that is one of the key things, and one of the things that we've reiterated with government as well is there are tools and resources available. You do not need to start from scratch. If you get a taste for it by looking at the food service packaging guidelines, there's a whole series of sustainable packaging guidelines, which is a much bigger document, but that's also, if you're interested in and maybe knowing more about sustainable packaging, that is a great document as well. So there are lots of resources out there.
Great, thanks, Brooke. And just to acknowledge a couple of the kind of comments that have come through the chat box. So one being from Colin. So Colin's looking for recycled content glass. So if anyone wants to get in touch with him, that would be much appreciated. And feel free to put those kind of comments in here, or the APCO team's always happy to kind of try and point you in the right direction. We also have a comment from Alejandra over at Planet Arc saying that Ryan attended one of the working groups yesterday and it went very, very well. So thanks for the comment there, Ali. Appreciate that. We have another one on the kind of takeaway and coronavirus response. So do you think it would be necessary to do a broad re-education campaign about sustainable packaging once the takeaway restrictions are over? So previous behaviour change work is not entirely undone.
Oh, look, I think one of the things that you learn when you work in this space is that this is a space that requires continuous and continual communication. I believe that I will be talking about sustainable packaging until my very last days. It is something that, especially when you are doing something around that is, I think a good example is the Australasian Recycling Label, or the ARL, which, people tend to think of as a labelling program or a communication program, when what it actually is an incredibly complex and massive behavioural change program. And that behavioural change program is, a big part of that, you learn very quickly, is this continual communication, the need to constantly be reinforcing and sharing information, because people will hear something and listen to something and they'll hear it 4, 5, 6, 8 times. And it won't be until that one moment where, that hearing that then coordinates with something that they see or something that they were engaged with, and 2 or 3 things will collide and they'll have this moment of understanding and they'll get it. But they might have seen something or have been told this already 7 or 8 different times. And so you know, the continual process of communicating with people is so important. And you know, we were so pleased that last year we were awarded, and we have received actually this year some funding from the Commonwealth Government to actually push out our consumer education program. Part of that is the ARL, part of it is discussions around reuse and consumption and various other aspects of sustainable packaging. And that's a 2-year program that's funded for this coming financial year through to the following financial year. And it's not a great deal of money, but it's that little bit of extra money that helps us actually deliver on this work. And, you know, we're working very proactively with Planet Arc to deliver that to consumers, and with our network to deliver it to industry and to work with government on how that all comes together. And I think sustainable packaging, it can be an incredibly complex space when you start to get into some of the more technical areas, but you know, there's also some guiding principles, like the 10 principles that are in the sustainable packaging guidelines, that are really important. And if we can play to those and stick to those 10 principles and get that right, we get 80% of it right. It's that 20-80 rule, you know. So I think the most important thing to remember with sustainable packaging is don't allow yourself to get caught in the 1% issues and do nothing. We are better to work through and achieve and make significant change, and then take the time to work through the 1% issues, the little technical things that we need to still find resolution or solutions for, and acknowledge that that's part of you know, how we communicate and how we actually manage this space more effectively going forward.
Fantastic, thanks, Brooke. It looks like those are all the questions that we have at the moment. Feel free to send anything else through to us. Just thinking about the next session. So next week on the 1st, like Brooke mentioned, we'll be launching our Packaging Future. So please feel free to tune in to that as well. And going through that, we'll have some special guest speakers around that also. But the session really is, you know, it's about community, and it's about talking through this with everyone together. So if you have ideas, if there's something where you'd like to speak with the APCO team about, we're totally open to that. So please feel free to send that through to the member services email. Send it through to myself, or send me a direct message in the chat here if it's on the top of your mind. We'll continue to do these, but we want to make sure that they are relevant to everyone that's attending and useful to you as well. So I guess just one last little slide here, Brooke.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, so we included this last slide here just to remind you all that we are interconnected, and to remind you all how important it is that we are part of this global community. And APCO is here. We are not going anywhere. We're all busy doing lots of things, and you know, delivering on the work that we had promised to do this year. And we are finding new ways of doing that, but we have so many interconnections, both here within Australia and within that global community. And if we learn one thing from this whole experience, it should be that we are interconnected in every way. And I think it's really important that we continue to focus on the work that we've got to do, focus on how we work well together and how we can effectively support each other, you know, take care of each other, be safe. And we will be here every Wednesday.
Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Brooke, for being our host. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot that through to the member services team, and we'll follow up with you from there. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.